Hello and welcome back to Curious Faith, questions and conversations for those people thinking about following Jesus again. I'm your host, Bill Wallace, and it is so good to have you join us for today's conversation, a little bit different than some of the other ones we've had. But as I got to thinking about what we've talked about here, I thought, man, there's some really cool people that have a really cool story to share, and they were all able to join us for this. So I'm really looking forward to that. As you can see, if you're watching us, we are still in the land of COVID and quarantine and working on different levels of vaccination. And so for this one, we are all wearing masks. And again, just a good reminder, what a great way to support your neighbor and love your neighbor. If they're wearing masks, then encourage them on that. If someone is fully vaccinated, not, that's great too. Isn't that good news that we're at that point? So what a good way to be in our society around us. Is thankful that all this is happening. All right, so we're going to welcome in our guests at this time. Hello, guests. Great, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate that. If you would just maybe introduce yourselves and again, actually, don't tell any more about your story. Just start by introducing yourself. We'll begin with that. That'd be great.
My name's Caitlin.
Perfect. Thank you.
You are?
Okay, I'm Jennifer. And I'm just Katie, not Caitlin.
Yeah. Very good. That's how we'll keep it straight throughout this. That'll be good. Thank you so much. So we're going to talk about something that gets to this here in just a little bit, but we always start off our podcast just a little get-to-know-you question. So my question for you guys would be, what is the movie or TV show that you don't mind watching over and over again with the kids because it's really, really great? And I always answer first because I had the chance to think about that. So yes, you get into that stage of life, where you have to watch something over and over again, and they're the ones that you try and steer them to and away from, I will always say Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses was like, I hated that one. It was so awful. I didn't mind Barbie and the Three Musketeers at all, but the 12 Dancing Princesses just drove me nuts. So that would not be one. I would say for me, it really was Kids Next Door. I don't know if that hit any of you at all.
I don't think so.
Oh, Kids Next Door. It was good stuff. It was all about kids who were spies, and it was this cartoon thing, and they made this 2x4 technology. Yeah.
I was about that age.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah. So that was mine.
I have an infant, so the only thing that she watches is the first minute 30 seconds of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Yeah.
She pays attention. She loves Mickey Mouse Clubhouse for the first minute 30 seconds. I think it's actually minute 25.
Yeah.
And then she moves on. So we watch, but in the car on the way home from visiting grandparents, that minute 35 plays over and over if we are having a rough moment. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's my favorite and least favorite.
Perfect.
I would say I'm glad the boys, well, I have older kids and younger kids, so I'm glad the boys moved away from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh.
Because, I won't say my child's name, but one of the children would sing in the shower, "I'm a single lady," all the time. I won't give away who it was.
Yeah.
It's not my first son. That's all I'll say.
Excellent.
And I still would try to move them to watch Finding Nemo because that was my oldest son, his first favorite. So I love watching that. It reminds me of when they were younger.
Yep. Nice.
Well, we graduated from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Yeah.
I promise you I could sing the song if I wanted. We're really into Toy Story, so the kids have gone easy on us. It's nice. There's 4 movies,
that's quality
so they
right
don't
there.
get too old, and there's so much good adult humor mixed in with that. So it's a good time for our movie viewing right now.
Nice. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you. So our question for Curious Faith today is why foster? And thank you for being here to tell a little bit about your foster stories. Again, it's a little bit different than some of the other faith-based questions that we've talked about, but knowing you and knowing just a little bit, I know that is part of why you do it as well, and so super excited to hear a little bit more about that. For those maybe listening in, watching for the very first time, the idea of being a foster parent, being an adoptive parent, Those are really cool conversations to end up having. In my own family, we briefly had the conversation about fostering, but always just felt called to adoption for, again, God reasons, as it turns out. We ended up bringing our youngest into our family through adoption, and so we champion that and love that, and wanted to give you all a chance, to talk about foster and how that's a little bit different in other ways, what that's meant to you. So at this point, share just a little bit about maybe your foster story, probably the briefest time you've ever had to share that. Usually that's a 30-minute conversation, I know. And, but to begin with that, just how did fostering come about for you? And we don't have to go in order each time. Just kind of how that worked for you.
I watched my aunt and uncle be foster parents.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I got to see them do that and see the impact that they were making on these kids' lives. And a lot of the time that they spent, they were actually on the other side of the country living in New York at the time that they were fostering, but we still just got to see that, like, they took in these 3 boys and ended up making a huge impact in their life. And then when they moved back over here, we got to meet some of the other kiddos that came into their lives and see that. And I just thought it was such a cool thing for them to do, and to know the impact they were making and how selfless of a decision it was. And so that was when I was a young preteen and teen that I got to see that, and I knew at that point, I'm like, this is definitely something that I want to do.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. See, I learned something new already.
I know, I didn't know that.
That's awesome.
Well, for me, I think I've always wanted to be a foster parent, but our kids were younger, and I always imagined having an older foster child. I don't know. But what initially happened was, after my first 3 were born, I always counted for 4. When they'd walk past me going into a store, I'd be like, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I was like, I don't have 4 kids. This happened all the time. Or I'd go and buy cookies, and I'd buy 4 cookies. We don't have 4 kids, And it wasn't until that was kind of like, okay, I hear you loud and clear. There is a 4th child out there. And when we didn't have a 4th child, I started taking it a little more seriously. Like, I'm obviously missing somebody, And we've been foster parents for almost 2 years, but it was, I want to say about 3 years ago now, that my older 3 kids came to me individually. And there was a child that they knew that was in foster care. And individually they came to me and said, we need to become foster parents and become her family. And the first child said it, and I was like, wow, it's crazy, because I had thought it too. And the second child came to me and said it, and I was like, this is kind of strange. And the 3rd child came to me and said it, and I was like, okay, I better talk to my husband about this. And then we watched a video of this little girl, and she said, I've always wanted 3 siblings, and I love red hair. A lot of my kids have red hair. And I just want to be part of a family that has a dog. And so we all just kind of looked at each other and were like, let's just do this. Let's do it. It ended up that child was adopted before we could complete the process. And so we said to the kids, is this something you still want to pursue? And my second son was like, I don't even know why you would ask that. Of course, there's still other kids out there. And so we were really pushed by, it was something that we were all called to do individually. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We very much felt called also. We had 1 daughter of our own, and didn't know anybody that was a foster parent, didn't know anybody that grew up in the system, really didn't even know many people that had adopted. And it very much felt like we just boarded this train and we were going forward, whether we really wanted to or not. I mean, we were excited about it, but it was just kind of a full steam ahead. We started filling out the forms, taking the training, and then out of nowhere, I got pregnant, and it was kind of this shock that, I thought, God, we were on this path to foster, and wow, I'm just kind of overcome with this blessing of now, being pregnant again, and then I miscarried. And so dealing with the hardship of that, and not knowing what God had just around the corner, we got a phone call for a baby boy 4 months after what our little baby would have been born at. So something, weathering the storm is something so awful, and then, just God had something amazing for us that we had no way to know it was coming. So,
Thank you for sharing that. It's just, wow. So for all of you, in terms of where you're at right now, I think one of the biggest questions we got asked from an adoption standpoint, I imagine gets asked even more for foster families, is there's got to be a fear factor there, right? Like you don't know, what child you're bringing into your home. I mean, you shared just a little bit. Like you got a phone call and 20 minutes later, like you were out and on the way to...
Yeah, we were on date night. We'd finished dinner. We'd been in the hotel room for 20 minutes when we got a call asking if we wanted to take in this infant tonight. And I remember just asking them, I'm like, how quickly do I need to be home? Like, I'm only about 20 minutes away from my house, thankfully, but like, are you at my front door?
Right?
Like, I had no idea. And they're like, well, if you can wrap up and get there in about 30 minutes, that would be great. And so we just did.
That's so funny.
And I think it ended up being an hour later. We got home and then paced around. We literally paced around the house for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then she just came in the front door. It was crazy. It was totally wild.
I mean, can you prepare yourself for that? I mean, what do you do? Like,
so my husband and I are licensed for 0 to 8, and we've fostered 3 kiddos now, and we've had a 6-year-old. We went up to a 12-year-old for a minute, and he was a blast. And then we have an infant now, and we have enough to last 24 hours for whatever age group. Yeah. And so I had 1 12-ounce jar of formula and an infant on my doorstep in 30 minutes. Wow. Yeah. So you don't prepare, but you do. Like there's only so much you can do and so much you can have in your house, and I have a tiny house, so no room for all that stuff.
Oh my gosh. Very good.
Like preparing from an emotional standpoint, I don't know that you really can prepare for that.
I agree.
But what always gets me is people will say, I could never be a foster parent. I don't know how you do it.
Yes, all the time.
And I think, that's a very common question. And, for the people that have said that to me, no offense. I look at it differently, though. Like, do you think that I don't feel the heartache saying goodbye or the disappointment or, positive feelings too? Right. But I think about, as an adult, me being able to process my own sadness, disappointment, working through those feelings as an adult is so much easier, and loving the kid wholeheartedly while they're in your care, that you can deal with the emotion that comes with it. Not easy, but you can handle your own adult emotions, and you just go in 110%, with your heart on your sleeve. And
wow.
Yeah, I get that question a lot because we love this little girl, and we have only had her for a little while, and especially my very close friends are like terrified for what is going to happen when she goes, because you just know that that's the reality of it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because you just don't, and you just process it and you deal with it, and you just know that you have the capacity to handle it and get over it and do counseling for it that kids don't have the capacity to do.
Right, exactly.
Wow. It just sounds like a level of maturity that not everyone we know would necessarily possess. But to your point, I think people can surprise themselves too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think one thing that people say in foster care a lot is, oh, kids are so resilient.
They're not.
And they're not, and
they're
they
not.
shouldn't have to be, but we are the ones that are. And so that's why you just make that conscious decision that you're the one that's going to be resilient in this situation, and you're going to shoulder all of these issues, and you just do it because you have to, and you know that that's what you signed up for, even on the days when it's really hard.
And I think the notion that it's going to be easy I'm so thankful that we did not go into it with rose-colored glasses. We have a hard-to-place youth, which you guys know. And I didn't think it would be this hard. I'm very honest about that. I did not think it would be as hard as it is. But I also, it was our first placement. So to get a hard-to-place youth as your first placement has been very challenging. But our family has taken it in stride, and it's really a team effort to work with this child and hopefully come out a little better on the other side for her. But I think the fear for me when they called for our placement, we weren't even licensed when they tried to place her with us. We were not licensed yet. But they really wanted her in our home. And my fear is you get a little sheet. What's it called? I can't remember the
Chipper.
name. Yes, you get a little chipper. And it doesn't say really anything.
Yeah.
I remember when we got that call for her in that 20 minutes, I asked for the chipper, and they were like, there isn't one.
Yeah,
Of course there's not. Of course
Yeah.
there's not.
Yeah, it just
But it was just an automatic question.
It's
yeah.
like they're this age, they've been in this many homes.
Yeah.
They may have these problems.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
may have these problems. So I had time to ask questions because I was like, I'm not licensed yet. I can't take her until, I had time to ask questions, but I didn't get a lot of clear answers. And it wasn't until she'd been in our home for, maybe like 7 months. They say there's a honeymoon period, and we didn't really have a honeymoon period with
Yours
her.
was a couple minutes.
Ours was about 5 minutes, and then I instantly had gray hair. No, I'm just kidding. But they say there's a honeymoon period, and she really tried those first few months, to. It's hard for kids to bond. Some kids have a really hard time bonding. So the first few months were hard for her, and then after her honeymoon period, we really saw the real pain in her life, and so we're still in that, and we've had her for 22 months.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think the fear is when you did the unknowns, like what am I strong enough to handle? That was ours, and I ask myself that still today.
Sure.
Am I strong enough to handle what she's going through right now?
Yeah.
And I think one thing a lot of people don't realize about foster care is that when you get that chipper and you get that information on a kiddo, you have the opportunity to review, and you have the opportunity to understand that this might not be a good fit, and you can say no.
Yes.
And it's okay.
Yep.
Because your no is somebody else's yes, and they're going to be better prepared than you might be, and that is okay. We got a lot of calls in the beginning, and we had to be really selective because we aren't parents ourselves. We're previously to this, and so we knew that we didn't have the skill set that a lot of these kids would need, and so it was hard to say no and not know where those kids were going to go that day, but just having to understand our own limitations and accept that for the best interest of them.
That is really important. I know you and I have talked about that. That's really important. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the pressure that we sometimes take on ourselves, that if you're prepped ahead of time to know where your line in the sand is, that can make it a lot easier. But the truth of the matter is, there's just so many sad stories. We felt pressured from time to time from placement to take somebody. Every night here in Everett, we have kids that are staying in motels. Yeah. I mean, it's a very real issue. But it's really kind of got to consider your other family members, your other children, and then that self-care part. How are you going to be your best to help then, take care of the others? Put your oxygen mask on first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before you know it, it's so true.
I've learned a lot about self-care in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Crucial.
That's very much so.
And you've always heard prior to being licensed that there are a lot of kids in foster care and there's always a need, but I didn't realize how much the need was.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you guys still get the emails every day, but I get emails every day, and it's a long list of kids. I think the shortest I ever saw the list close to the holidays was there was like 10 kids on it. That was the shortest list. And so the need is huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's incredible. So, not to do it. The question I want to ask is about 3 minutes long, so I'm trying to parse it. Specifically, how can the church support foster care, and some of that comes out of just I would hope that church communities see that as something that would be really valuable to do anyway, but especially thinking back over this last year and just some of the things that you all have shared. I think in order to do foster well, it doesn't take just a family, it takes a village. That is true. And so many of us have not been able to have that village over this last, 12 to 15 months. As we are, slowly and thankfully kind of coming out of that, there's an opportunity for communities to be excited about that again, to say, hey, how can we step into that? So I don't know if you want to share too much about the help you could have used. That could maybe be a long conversation. But maybe that informs, how the church might be able to do a good job of supporting and honoring and lifting up foster in a season where hopefully we can do that a little better.
When you sent us the questions, that was the one that I kind of had to ponder the longest, because it's hard.
It's a really hard one.
It's hard to ask for help. Always.
Yes.
It is. And especially when people don't realize necessarily how hard the situation is and how our hands are tied on different things. Like, for example, I had a lot of people in the first few days like, oh, well, we can watch her, we can give you guys a couple minutes. I'm like, well, you have to be background checked, and also you can't transport her, and like there's all these other steps to keep these kids safe. But it's not just as simple as dropping you off so I can go grocery shopping. Like, we just got babysitters approved, and we are hopefully having date night sometime soon. But I think for us, especially with us having a kind of wide age range for our license, and knowing that like with each of these kiddos that could potentially come in, or we may never have that age or that group in need, and only having a 12-ounce can of formula and 20 minutes notice on an infant, is just the tangible items. And I've had a really great support system of, I can just put out a list and be like, these are the things that I really need, and those things got dropped off at our doorstep, and that was incredible. In knowing that, especially during COVID, that the emotional and physical support couldn't really be there, but having that tangible support and just getting some formula and getting some diapers and getting jammies and clothes and things that, because if we kept that much clothes for 0 to 8, and then we took a 12-year-old, like, there's no way.
I tried that. It didn't happen.
Yeah. So that's definitely one way that we were supported and were able to get that without having a bunch of things dropped off on our doorstep too early. Yeah.
I think that's the hardest question on there for a couple reasons. Every kid and situation is so different. So, I know for me, when I'm out in public with our children, and people see our youngest, they want to meet her and they want to like greet her and do all this stuff, and I don't know how to. It's not always the best idea, and so then I'm uncomfortable and I don't know how to say stop. Wait, please don't do that, because I always tell my family, I feel like the crazy mom, I like a crazy mother sometimes with her. I'm like, don't talk to her right now, because I do have a different situation. It's kids who have been through trauma. There's some stuff that can set them off. And so we did attempt church a couple of weeks ago, and we probably won't for a while. It was too much for her. But I would say, I don't know how you guys are, I'm an open book about the things I can share. And I don't mind being asked, like, is it okay if I see you on Sunday to whatever, just to make me feel like a normal mom when I'm sitting in church. And I look anxious because I'm afraid there could be a situation that I'm going to have to take a kid out of church. Just to be that, just supportive. And don't judge us if my kid is screaming and she's older than she should be screaming, that's kind of one of them. The other thing I think is anybody who wants to help support foster families, read up on trauma. There's a really great TED Talk on the ACEs.
I haven't heard that.
I will send it to you. And it really helps people understand that you might have a not average brain child in your house with you because some things have happened to them. And trauma is very real with these kids. And then the other thing, I hate saying this, please don't say they're lucky to have us.
Yes.
That is so hard for us to hear. Do you?
Yeah.
That is so hard.
And we're not going to correct you on it because
we
don't know
we
how.
Feel awkward. But by all means, this child is not lucky. I mean, this child, obviously they've been taken from their bio parents. Their life has been harder than mine has. And so when I know the meaning behind they're lucky to have you. Like, you're a really great family for doing this. Okay, fine, but the kid's not lucky. So I don't know why. That just always is hard for me to hear. You're lucky, or she's lucky, or she's blessed to have you.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And it's such a heartfelt thing for somebody to say.
It
And it
does.
has
They
so
mean
much
it.
good meaning and intention
it does.
behind it.
Yeah.
And it,
They mean it the right. They mean it the
do.
right way.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just, you hear it and you're like, no. But they mean it the right way. They do. Yes.
I think from the church, we need prayers.
Yes.
And by we, I mean the child, first and foremost. You know, the family they're living in, the foster parents, the foster siblings, but also not to leave out the biological
Yes,
parents.
absolutely.
You know, these people have come across tough times for a variety of reasons, and some of them are trying harder than others to get their children back. But you know, one of my most rewarding things as a foster mom was getting to return one of our children to her birth mom.
Amazing.
And seeing, you know, being able to encourage that, to cheer the mother on, it was just really the most rewarding thing. And so, you know, those people need to be remembered too. You know, that.
Yep. I agree. And I don't think people realize that statistically children do better with their biological parents. And so even living with a healthier family than theirs is a trauma for them.
Sure.
So they do better with their biological parents no matter what the problem is. So the best thing for them is to hopefully the parents get the help that they need and the care that they need so they can have their family reunited.
Yeah.
And as foster parents, we can play a part in that too. And depending on what that looks like and what's safe to do and what the situation is. But I've been lucky to have really great communication with my kiddo's mom and been able to support her and let her know how she's doing and encourage her to keep fighting for her daughter and be able to be a part of her life and working towards reunification. You go into foster care knowing that that is always the goal. It will always be the goal until it's not. But you know that that's the mindset you have to have always, is that you are here for now and you have them for now and that you are part of their team to get them to go home.
And the beauty is if you build that relationship, if mom falls into hard times again, she still has that relationship with you and will be able to maybe ask that the daughter be placed with her again.
We've already gotten a call for one of our kiddos. He's back in care. And I have a 2-bedroom house, and my husband and I were sitting there trying to figure out if we move into the dining room. Like, we were trying to figure out a way to
We've opened there.
find a spot and make this work.
We're adding on.
Yeah. Seriously, I was like, how much does this cost? Because you just never know. And having to give that no that we didn't have room for it was really hard. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Wow. Good stuff to hear. One of the things that that I do need to be reminded of, is that oftentimes I think this happens all the time, right? Right after you have a child, right after a death in the family or whatever, people say, hey, whatever I can do, just ask. Whereas I think the reverse maybe needs to be true. Hey, can I just do this and offer something as opposed, because then you'll say no, right? Like, no, actually, that's not all that helpful.
Yeah.
But it's
and I don't know what to ask for. And I mean, there was a point where I was forgetting to make dinner for us. Honestly, that probably would have been super helpful.
And if someone had just said, hey, can I just bring you dinner?
Bill has a couple times during really hard days offered to come and get my other kids. And so, that's been really helpful. I'm like, thank you. At least my oldest daughter can get out of the house. She shares a room with our foster. So it's at least she can get a break for a little bit, go at Bill's house and be normal. Not that he has to invite everybody. But
I was thinking about the normal part. I'm like, geez, that's...
Well, she could be herself there and it'd be okay. That's what I mean.
Yes, totally fit in this.
But, just hang out the average
and help us brainstorm ideas of what is helpful. Like one of the things that I didn't realize we were missing out on is my husband and I prep his breakfast sandwiches, and I didn't realize how important of a ritual that was for us. And so my mom and her husband came over and watched her, and we got to make breakfast sandwiches, and that was one of the first moments of like normalcy we had.
Oh.
And I didn't realize how random and really important that was to us, was to get his breakfast sandwiches and prepped it in the freezer.
That's really cute.
And it was, yeah, like that seriously was like, I was like, this is the most helpful thing that has happened in the last month. Yeah. And I mean, COVID took so many restrictions on that, but being able to have that and be able to do that one really important thing for us and check it off our list was huge. And I didn't know that it was until it was happening. But my mom was like, well, what do you want to do right now? Like, what's something you can take care of? She's like, you can just sit on the couch if you want.
Yeah.
I was like, I really need to prep breakfast sandwiches. Yeah.
I think I've appreciated our tribe that will just sometimes randomly message and be like, how are you?
Yep.
And
That's
I
the
know
biggest
what
support.
they're asking about,
Yeah.
and I'll be like, it's been a hard week, and I will dump, and I'll be like, sorry, that was gross and probably too much information, but that's what happened this week, and they'll be like, wow, praying for you, but really, I feel like it's sincere when somebody messages me and says, like, just how are you right now? Because you can't, some stuff you just can't share,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
That's good. As we wrap up, our time's about done. Details help for anybody that hearing this and might be thinking to themselves, hey, I'd love to find out a little bit more about that. What's the best next step for someone who's got just a little bit of spark? Maybe this is something I want to hear more about.
I work with a private agency, so and I know you do state. I don't know.
I went directly to the state. Yep.
I work with a private agency, so I personally would hook them up with our agency, or actually they'd be talking to me because I'm like, after they do the little website thing, then I talk to them and see what their level of interest
that's so
is.
cool.
I know. I started doing that. So, but that would be a great way to start, or just pick our brains. That's how and say
absolutely.
what do you think? But once you do what's that first class called?
CCT.
Yeah, CCT. Once you do the CCT classes, you kind of know, like, I think I want to try this or not. So.
And a lot of it's online now too. Like COVID
Like
kind of
all of
shifted
it,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's how we did our entire license was online, which was hard too because we didn't get to meet other foster parents. And thankfully, I've known Jennifer for a lot of years and babysat her kids, so was able to get a lot of my questions answered from you. And so just reach out to us and. Just look up what the state has to offer, and they can kind of point you in that right direction.
And we'll
too.
recommend a ton of books for you to read and TED Talks to listen to.
I think, knowing that we're open to conversation and helping navigate. I always think about that terrible Sleep Country commercial that talks about not everyone can be a foster parent. And I disagree with that.
I disagree too. I do too.
So many kids out there that need different styles of home, different dynamics of homes.
Yeah.
And so to not think that you can't be a foster parent.
There's different levels too. You could even just be
different
the
levels.
respite parent. Like,
That's a huge
please give me a weekend to myself.
Yeah.
That's a huge need.
Yeah.
So there's different levels of commitment, really.
Absolutely. I mean, my husband and I both work outside the home and have other kids, and we can still do it. I mean, it's doable.
There's doable.
Lots of help out there. It's just a
And
matter
there's a lot of
knowing-
support for foster parents too. Like they really do try to meet our needs, like the state does, and give us what we can so that we can do this and we can make it all happen. Yeah, there's definitely more support than I thought there was going to be.
Yeah.
I agree. Like you just have to ask.
Yep, you just have to ask. There's a lot of
sometimes
help
it's
out
like
there.
you don't know what you don't know, so you just ask, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we have something for that."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. So.
Actually, that's good wisdom for all of us to end on, right there. Right? Just ask sometimes.
ask.
That's a good spot. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing a little bit of your story. It really is, just it's awesome to see. It is awesome to hear about. Again, I've heard a little bit about all of your stories, but this was super enlightening for me too, to get even more. So thanks for sharing that. If anything you heard really, again, just spark something for you, feel free to contact us through Faith or at the website hopesnowshow.org, and we'll get you talking to people and find ways that we can continue to support you all individually, but really the foster kids and foster families that need, and what a cool thing to do together. thanks so much. Thanks again for watching or listening wherever you have been watching or listening from. And join us for our continued conversations. We've got some really fun ones coming up. Look forward to getting your feedback on those as well. So thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And bye-bye.